Am I actually working on doing things that will get me to the destination that I'm hoping to get to?
I think one of the topics that I found really interesting in just having a peruse of the book and thinking about today was this idea of white space. And, I personally, and I'm sure many people, we often feel like we're barely keeping up. It's frantic, it's frenetic, it's busy, and the calendar is back to back to back to back to back to back. And especially, in the last 12, 18 months with COVID and shifting to a lot of virtual connections and meetings, et cetera, et cetera. So how do we end up here?
Yeah, that's a question that a lot of us are asking these days. The first third of the long game is really devoted to the concept of finding white space, because as most of us know intuitively, with our schedules, with our lives, you can't add more water to a glass that's already full, right? And it's not that strategic thinking or long-term thinking takes so much time. It doesn't. We're not saying, oh, you have to go be monks. Oh, you need to take a year off in order to think strategically. That is neither practical nor necessary. But what is necessary is having a little bit of time, having a little bit of space. And for so many of us, we are stuffed to the gills. Our schedules are so crammed. There is literally not any extra room to be able to step back and ask some fundamental questions like, am I actually working on the right things? Am I actually working on doing things that will get me to the destination that I'm hoping to get to? And on and on. And that busyness can be, obviously it's problematic. Most of us hate it, but we keep consistently failing to extricate ourselves from it. And in fact, sometimes even up the ante on ourselves. And so I really wanted to try to explore that further. Why is it that we keep moving more and more in that direction when we say it's the opposite of what we want? And helping to hopefully provide some tools for people so that they can break out of that to be able to ask more meaningful questions that can hopefully get us to a better place.
Was there a personal experience or a personal story that really led you to go, enough's enough? I gotta write this book and figure this out myself.
Well, one of the things that I actually allude to in the long game, I tell the story about writing and marketing one of my previous books. I got my whole little collection here. So in 2015, I wrote this book, which is called Stand Out: How to find your breakthrough idea and build a following around it. And I was so intent on, making this a big launch, getting it out there, that pre-COVID, obviously, I booked 74 talks that year, which, comes out to about a talk and a half a week, which, doesn't sound maybe terrible, but this was before Zoom was a thing. These were not webinars that I was doing. These were talks, and most of them were things that I had to travel to. So I was living in New York City, which I am now, and I was flying all around the country, sometimes all around the world. And, nurse at the end of the year, I was nursing yet another cold. I was sick again. And I was just sitting there so exhausted and burned out and feeling miserable under my blanket. And I realized I was paying so much money for my apartment in New York, and I was hardly ever there. I'm like, why am I living in this incredibly expensive city that I never even see? And it made me realize that I needed to make some adjustments in terms of how I was doing things. And, to actually ask those questions about, are my actions leading in the direction that I want? And so, as I described in the long game, I did end up making some changes, pretty big ones in that coming year in 2016. Notably, I decided to go much further into doing online courses, which I launched my flagship course in 2016 called Recognized Expert, because I realized that I wanted to do more in terms of building passive revenue streams so I didn't have to be traveling all the time. And secondly, I started a campaign for myself, a sort of New Year's resolution, where I would do one uniquely New York activity per week. And that actually led me on a path of discovering some side interests and hobbies like writing musical theater, which is something that I continue to do. And I write about that journey in the long game as well.